I was lying on the floor under our bed in nothing but my wedding dress when I heard the hotel room door open. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. This was it. The perfect prank. I could see his feet walking across the carpet. Black dress shoes. The same ones he'd worn at the altar just hours ago. I was holding my breath, trying not to giggle, waiting for him to notice I was missing from the bed so I could jump out and scare him. But then I heard voices. Multiple voices. And they weren't speaking English. My name is Sophie, and I'm 26 years old. And what happened on my wedding night was so insane that I still can't believe it actually occurred. It sounds like something you'd see in a movie, so ridiculous that you'd think someone made it up. But I lived through it, every second of it, and I'm about to tell you the entire story. Because nobody is going to believe this anyway. Let me back up to earlier that day. The wedding was beautiful, small, just, immediate family and close friends. Maybe 80 people total. We got married at the courthouse first because we wanted to save money. Then we had a small ceremony at a church. Then a reception at a local restaurant with a private room. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive. Just us celebrating with the people we cared about most. My husband is named David. We'd been dating for 3 years before he proposed. We knew each other inside and out. He was my best friend, the person I trusted more than anyone in the world. We had inside jokes and secret handshakes, and all those little things that come from years of being together. I thought I knew everything about him, thought there were no surprises left. The wedding night was going to be special. We'd booked a suite at a nice hotel in the city, something a little fancy for one night. We were going to stay in for the honeymoon later. This was just our wedding night, our first night as married people. David went to the hotel bar with some of his friends after the reception to celebrate, said he'd be back in a couple hours. I went up to the room early, wanted to get ready. To set the mood, I took a long shower, shaved everything, did my hair and makeup, even though I'd already done it for the wedding, put on the beautiful white negligee I'd bought specifically for this night. The one that cost way more than it should have, because it was silk and lace and basically nothing at all. Then I had a brilliant idea. Or at least I thought it was brilliant at the time. I'd hide under the bed. When David came in, he'd think I was in the bathroom or something. He'd be confused for a moment, and then I'd jump out and scare him. It would be funny. We'd laugh about it. And then we'd have our wedding night. So, I got down on the floor. The carpet was soft. The space under the bed was just big enough for me to fit if I ducked my head down. I could see out from under the bed, skirt enough to know when he was coming. I could hear when he opened the door. This was going to be perfect. This was going to be hilarious. I lay there for probably 5 minutes before I heard the key card in the lock, the door opening, his footsteps. I held my breath, tried not to giggle, waited for him to notice I wasn't on the bed. But instead of just David, I heard other voices, male voices, speaking what sounded like Russian or some Eastern European language. I couldn't understand what they were saying, but they sounded excited, animated, like they were having a good time. Through the gap in the bed skirt, I could see multiple pairs of feet. Not just David's. At least 3 other guys. Maybe 4. I was confused. Why were all these men in our honeymoon suite? Why had David brought his friends up here? I heard David's voice. No, this is definitely the right room. Suite 47B. This is it. But it didn't sound like David. Not exactly. It sounded like David, but also not like David. The accent was different. The intonation was off. Something was wrong. Another voice. Definitely not David. This is beautiful. So nice. Perfect for the mission. Mission? What mission? I was now officially confused and a little bit scared. This wasn't funny anymore. This wasn't what I expected. I heard someone walk into the bathroom, heard the sound of a suitcase being opened. Then I heard something that made my blood run cold. Multiple suitcases being unzipped. the sound of things being moved around. "This is good," one of the voices said. "Very good. We can set up operations here. Nobody will suspect anything." "Operations? What operations?" I was starting to panic now. Something very strange was happening, and I was stuck under a bed in my wedding negligee with no way to get out without revealing myself. "We need to keep a low profile," another voice said. "No noise, no attention. We do the job and we leave. Clean and simple." "Job? What job?" At this point, I was terrified. I didn't move, didn't make a sound, just lay there under the bed, trying to breathe quietly, trying to figure out what was happening. The footsteps moved around the room. I heard someone open the curtains, heard them moving furniture, heard what sounded like equipment being set up. Computer equipment, maybe, or surveillance equipment. I couldn't tell, but it didn't sound good. Then I heard one of them pick up the phone. The hotel phone on the nightstand. They were calling someone, speaking in rapid Russian or whatever language it was. I caught a few words. Something about a target, something about coordinates, something about tomorrow at midnight. I was now absolutely certain something illegal was happening in my honeymoon suite, and I was trapped under the bed with no way to escape without being discovered. The conversation went on for another 10 minutes. They were discussing plans. I caught the word diamonds at one point. Then bank. Then security system. These people were planning something. Some kind of heist, maybe? Or robbery? Or something worse? I was trying to figure out what to do. I couldn't just lie under the bed forever. Eventually, I'd have to move. Eventually, I'd be discovered. And when that happened, what would these guys do? Would they hurt me? Would they kidnap me? Would they kill me to keep me quiet? My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure they could hear it. I was trying to think of options. There was a phone on the nightstand, but I couldn't reach it. There was a door to the bathroom, but it was across the room. There was a balcony, but we were on the 5th floor. I was trapped. I was considering trying to make a run for the door when I heard new voices. More commotion. It sounded like someone was trying to get into the room, someone without a key card. The guys inside the room started yelling in their language, sounding angry, confused. Then I heard a voice I recognized. A real voice. David's actual voice. The David I knew. My husband, my best friend. "Hey, why is this room locked? This is our honeymoon suite. We have a reservation." Oh my God. David was here. The real David. Not the person who'd been in the room before. There were two people sounding like David, or I'd been mistaken about who was in the room before. The door opened, and David walked in. The real David. My David. And when he saw the men in the room, his face went pale. "What the hell is going on here?" One of the men stepped forward. He looked like David. Not exactly. The features were slightly different. The nose was different. The jaw was different. But he looked enough like David that in the right light, with the right clothes, you might think they were related. Or mistaken identity. "This is our room," the man said. "Suite 47B. We have it booked for tonight." But he was speaking with an accent now. That Russian or Eastern European accent. Like he'd just remembered to use it. David looked confused. "No, this is my room. I have a reservation. I have my wedding. I night tonight. My wife is." "Wait, where's my wife?" He looked around the room. Looked for me on the bed. I wanted to move. Wanted to reveal myself. But I was too terrified of these strange men. And David looked terrified too. This situation had gone way beyond a prank. The man who looked like David smiled. "I think there's been a mistake. A booking error, perhaps. Suite 47B is ours, not yours." "No, it's definitely mine. I have the confirmation right here." David pulled out his phone. Started to look for his reservation confirmation. But before he could find it, the men surrounded him, not physically threatening him, but blocking the door, making it clear he wasn't leaving. David looked panicked. He was looking around the room, at the equipment they'd set up, at the suitcases, at the man who looked like him. What is all this? What are you guys doing in here? David's voice was shaking. And why do you look so much like me? The man smiled again. But this time, it wasn't a friendly smile. It was cold, predatory. I think you've walked into something you shouldn't have seen. That's unfortunate for you. I couldn't watch this anymore. My husband was in danger, and it was somehow related to me being under this bed. I had to do something. I had to move. I had to help him. I wiggled out from under the bed as fast as I could. The silk negligee wasn't very helpful for crawling, but I managed. I emerged on the other side of the bed, the side closest to the bathroom. All 4 men saw me at the same time. Their eyes went wide. David's expression went from terrified to even more terrified when he saw me in basically nothing. "Sophie, what are you doing under the bed?" he yelled. "I was trying to prank you." I yelled back. But then these guys showed up. The man who looked like David was staring at me, specifically staring at my wedding dress. The part of it that was still pooled on the floor where I'd taken it off. The white dress. The symbol of a bride. The symbol of today. "You're married?" he said to David. The accent was gone now. He wasn't bothering to hide it anymore. "Yes. Today. Just this afternoon. Why do you look like me? Who are you?" The man laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was a bitter, angry laugh. "I'm your half-brother, your father's son, from before he met your mother. Before he had you. Before he decided he was going to forget all about the first family he had." I watched David's face process this. His expression went from confusion to shock to something like understanding. He had a half-brother he didn't know about. A half-brother who looked so much like him that he could probably pass for him. A half-brother who was currently planning some kind of robbery or heist in his honeymoon suite. "My father had you," David said slowly. "Yes. My mother and your father were together for 4 years in Russia. Had me. Then he decided he wanted a new life, a new family. He came to America, married your mother, had you, and forgot about us, forgot about me." "I didn't know," David said. "My father never mentioned." "Of course he didn't. He's a coward. A man who runs from his responsibilities. Leaves his first family behind. But I've spent 20 years looking for him, trying to figure out who he was, what he did with his life. And now I've found him, and I've found you. Why are you in my honeymoon suite? Why the elaborate setup?" The man gestured to the equipment, to the suitcases, to everything they'd brought. "We're planning to rob a bank, a very expensive bank with very valuable items. We've been surveilling it for months. This hotel room has the perfect view of the building, perfect angle for the security cameras. We were going to set up operations here, do the job, and disappear." I was listening to this and not believing what I was hearing. This man, this half-brother David didn't know about. This man who looked like David enough to be mistaken for him. This man had planned to use David's honeymoon suite to plan a bank robbery. "What happens now?" David asked. His voice was steady, but I could see his hands shaking. "That depends on you," the man said. "We can do this 2 ways. You can stay quiet, pretend you didn't see us, go back downstairs. Tell the hotel we checked out early. Nobody knows you're here. You say nothing and we say nothing, and nobody gets hurt. And if I don't, then you become part of the operation. Involuntarily, you and your beautiful bride here." David looked at me. I could see the fear in his eyes, the calculation. He was trying to figure out what to do, how to protect me, how to protect himself, how to get us out of this situation alive. "We won't say anything," I heard myself say. My voice was surprisingly steady, even though I was terrified. "We'll just leave, go to a different hotel. Tell them our first choice had a problem. we'll keep quiet. Just let us go. The man studied me for a long moment, then he nodded. Okay, that works for me. You leave. You keep quiet. Everyone lives. Nobody gets hurt. That's good for everyone. Give me your word, David said, that you won't hurt anyone. That you won't hurt Sophie. You have my word. I'm a lot of things. A thief. A criminal. But I'm not a murderer. I won't hurt you or your bride unless I have to. And I don't have to, so I won't. David grabbed my hand, squeezed it tight, looked at the man for one more moment. Then he pulled me toward the door. Wait, the man said. We stopped, turned back. He was smiling again, but this time it was almost sad. Tell your father. Tell him you met his other son. Tell him I'm alive and well, and I'm taking what I should have had all along. Tell him that blood might be thicker than water, but it's not strong enough to stop me from making my own way in the world. I'll tell him, David said. We left. Just like that, David pulled me out of the room, into the hallway. We were both in a state of shock. I was still basically naked, still in my negligee, still covered in hotel carpet fuzz. David was in his tuxedo, disheveled, terrified. We didn't go back downstairs. We went straight to the elevator. Hit the button for the ground floor. Neither of us said anything on the way down. We were both trying to process what had just happened. My prank had uncovered a bank robbery, and David had discovered he had a half-brother. A half-brother he'd never known about. A half-brother who now had the perfect cover for a crime because he looked so much like David. When we got to the lobby, the night clerk looked at us confused. I was in basically nothing. My hair was messed up. I had carpet residue on my skin. David looked like he'd been in a fight. The clerk said nothing, but I could see the judgment in his eyes. We need a different room, David said. And we need it now. The clerk seemed hesitant. Probably didn't want to rent a room to someone who looked like they were already having a crisis on their first night here. But David put a credit card on the counter and said, "Whatever room you have available, money is not a problem." They upgraded us to a penthouse suite, paid an extra $500. We went up, got into the new room, and finally allowed ourselves to process everything that had happened. Did that really just happen? I asked. I think so. Unless we're both having the same shared hallucination. Your half-brother is planning to rob a bank in your hotel room. Yep. And he looks exactly like you. Apparently. We looked at each other for a long moment, and then we both started laughing. Not happy laughing. Stressed laughing. The kind of laughing that happens when something so insane occurs that you don't know how else to process it. We laughed until we cried, until our sides hurt, until we were lying on the penthouse bed unable to function. When we finally calmed down, the reality of the situation started to sink in. We should call the police, I said. Tell them about the robbery. And say what? That my half-brother I didn't know I had is planning to rob a bank? That he looks exactly like me? That he was using my honeymoon suite to plan the crime? Will sound insane. So we just do nothing? For now, yeah. He said he'd let us go if we stayed quiet. He said he wouldn't hurt anyone. I believe him. I don't think he's a murderer. I think he's a man who feels like he was wronged by my father, who's trying to take control of his own life the only way he knows how. By robbing a bank. Yeah, not the best choice. But I understand the motivation. The next morning, we woke up and the first thing we did was turn on the news. There was no report of a bank robbery. Nothing, no crime, no incident. The day went on, still nothing. We went back downstairs, thought about going back to the room where it all happened, but we couldn't. Not yet. So we checked the news throughout the day. Checked again that evening. Still nothing. The bank robbery didn't happen. Or it was going to happen later. Or it never happened at all. That night, David's phone rang. An unknown number. He answered it carefully, listened for a moment, then handed the phone to me. He wants to talk to you. It was the man, the half-brother. Hello, Sophie. I wanted to call and apologize for disrupting your wedding night. I didn't mean to intrude on such a special occasion. What happened with the bank robbery? I asked. Didn't happen. Plans changed. We found a better target. Or we decided it was too risky. It doesn't matter. The point is, you're safe. Your husband is safe, and we're gone. Where are you? Somewhere, far from here. Somewhere where nobody will find us. But I want David to know something. I want him to know that I don't blame him for any of this. I only blame his father. His father made choices. Choices that affected people he didn't even know existed. Why did you call? Because I realized something. Having David as a brother, even briefly, even in that crazy circumstance, it meant something to me. I spent 20 years angry at the world for my father's choices. But meeting David, seeing him trying to protect you, seeing the life he's building, it reminded me that maybe not everyone is defined by their parents' decisions. Maybe I can be more than just my father's abandoned son. Maybe I can build my own life. Are you going to turn yourself in? Tell the authorities about the crime you were planning? No. But I'm not going to do it either. I'm going to disappear. Start over. Be someone new. And I'm going to pretend that I never existed, that I never found David, that I never knew about this life that could have been mine. He hung up. And that was the last we ever heard from him. No word, no contact, no indication he ever existed. Just a man who looked like David, who was David's brother, who changed everything in one hotel room in one evening. David tried to find his father, to ask him about this other son, but his father denied everything. Said it was a lie. Said David was confused. Said it never happened. He wouldn't admit to anything. Wouldn't acknowledge that he had another family in Russia. Wouldn't acknowledge his other son. So David let it go. There wasn't much else he could do. He had no proof. Just a story about something so insane that nobody would believe him anyway. For months after, I thought about that night. About the prank that turned into something so much bigger. About the half-brother who turned out to be David's mirror image. About the life that could have been so different if things had gone differently. If I hadn't hidden under the bed, would David have come in alone? Would the half-brother have confronted him about his father? Would the robbery have happened? Would any of it have occurred? But it did occur. Because I decided to play a prank. Because my husband's father had abandoned a family. Because the world is sometimes stranger than fiction. We didn't take another honeymoon. We didn't try to reschedule the perfect wedding night. We just moved on, moved forward with our lives, got back to normal. Or as normal as things could be when you've discovered that your father has a secret family. David never spoke to his father the same way again. There was a distance, a coolness, a suspicion that there were other secrets, other things his father was hiding. The trust between them was broken. But my marriage to David became stronger because we'd faced something impossible together. We'd been scared together. We'd survived together. And in a weird way, meeting his half-brother had brought us closer. It had shown me that David was the kind of person who would protect me, even in the most insane circumstances. It had shown me that when things got scary and weird and totally unexpected, he would stand by me. 5 years later, we were at a coffee shop, just randomly, getting coffee on a Sunday morning. And I saw him, the half-brother, David's mirror image, sitting alone, at a table, reading a newspaper, looking peaceful, normal, like any other person. He saw me at the same moment, made eye contact. For a second, I thought he might come over. Might say something, might tell me what he'd been doing for the past 5 years. But he didn't. He just smiled. A real smile this time. Not predatory, not angry, just genuine. Then he looked back at his newspaper. And I walked out of the coffee shop with my coffee, and I never saw him again. I told David about it later that day. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I'm glad he's okay. I'm glad he found peace. I'm glad my prank didn't completely destroy his life. Your prank? I said. It was my prank. But if I hadn't come upstairs, if the bank robbery hadn't been derailed, if you hadn't hidden under the bed, none of it would have happened. So yes. In a weird way, this whole thing traces back to my family, to my father, to choices made before either of us were born. And maybe he's right. Maybe the prank was just an excuse. Maybe fate was always going to bring these two brothers together. Maybe it was always meant to happen. Because sometimes the universe has a plan. And sometimes that plan is weirder than anything we could imagine. Sometimes the universe decides to bring people together in the most insane ways possible. But the story didn't end there. Because 6 months after I saw the half-brother at the coffee shop, David got a letter. No return address, postmarked from somewhere in Europe. Inside was a single piece of paper with neat handwriting. David, I know you've been wondering about me. About what happened after that night. About whether I ever went through with the robbery or found another path. I'm writing to tell you that I chose another path. Not the path our father would have chosen for me. Not the path I thought I was destined for. But a different path. A better path. I'm living in Prague now. Working as a translator. Using my languages for something legitimate. Something that helps people instead of hurts them. I have a small apartment. A cat named Pushkin. A simple life. It's not exciting. It's not glamorous. But it's mine. And it's honest. I want you to know that meeting you changed me. Seeing you with Sophie. Seeing the way you protected her. The way you built a life based on love instead of anger. It made me realize that I could do the same. That I didn't have to let our father's choices define my entire existence. I've been thinking about reaching out properly. About actually getting to know you as a brother instead of as a stranger who looks like you. But I don't know if that's fair to you. I don't know if you want that connection. I don't know if having me in your life would cause more harm than good. So I'm leaving it up to you. If you want to know me. If you want to build something between us. If you want to have a brother you never knew you had. My email address is below. Reach out if you want to. Don't if you don't. Either way, I'll understand. Thank you for that night. As strange as it was, as terrifying as it was, it saved me. It showed me there was another way. And for that, I'll always be grateful. Your brother, Alexei David, read the letter 3 times, then showed it to me. We sat at our kitchen table and stared at the email address for a long time. What are you going to do? I asked. I don't know. Part of me wants to know him, to have a brother, to build that relationship. But another part of me is scared. Scared of what it means. Scared of opening that door. Scared of what my father will say when he finds out I've been in contact with the son he abandoned. What does your heart tell you? He was quiet for a long time. Then he picked up his phone, started typing an email. My heart tells me that family is complicated, that people make mistakes, that we're not responsible for our parents' choices, and that maybe, just maybe, something good can come from something that started out so crazy. He sent the email, and 3 days later he got a response. They started emailing, carefully at first. Awkwardly. 2 strangers who shared DNA trying to figure out how to be brothers. They talked about their lives, their jobs, their interests, the things they had in common, and the things that were different. After 6 months of emails, they decided to meet. In person, we flew to Prague, David and me, to meet Alexei on his territory, on his terms, in the life he'd built for himself. The meeting was strange, surreal. Seeing them standing next to each other, 2 men who looked so similar but had lived such different lives. David, with his comfortable American existence. Alexei, with his rebuilt European life. Both products of the same father. Both shaped by that man's choices in completely different ways. We spent 3 days in Prague. Alexei showed us the city. His favorite cafes, the places he went to think. The apartment where he lived, his cat Pushkin, who was fat and orange and immediately loved me. We talked about everything, about their father, about the past, about the future, about what it meant to be brothers when you'd spent your entire lives not knowing each other existed. On the last day, we were sitting in a park, the three of us, watching people walk by, and Alexei said something that stuck with me. You know what's funny? I spent 20 years angry at your father for abandoning me, for choosing his new life over his old one, for pretending I didn't exist, and that anger consumed me, drove me to make terrible choices, to plan that robbery, to become someone I didn't want to be. But then I met you. And I realized something. Your father's worst decision, his most cowardly moment, the thing he should be most ashamed of. That decision led to me having a brother, led to this moment, led to us sitting here in this park having this conversation. I'm not saying I forgive him. I'm not saying what he did was okay, but I'm saying that sometimes the worst things lead to unexpected good things. And maybe that's enough. David didn't say anything, just reached over and squeezed his brother's shoulder. A gesture of understanding, of connection, of brotherhood that had nothing to do with their father and everything to do with the choice they were making to know each other. We flew back home, and David was different, lighter, like a weight had been lifted. He had a brother now, not a perfect relationship, not without complications, but real, honest, built on their own terms rather than their father's legacy. We stayed in touch with Alexei, video calls every few weeks, visits once or twice a year. He came to America and stayed with us, met our friends, became part of our lives in a way that felt natural despite how unnaturally we'd met. 3 years after that first letter, David finally confronted his father. We invited him to dinner, just the three of us. And David put a photo on the table, a photo of him and Alexei standing together in Prague. His father's face went white, then red, then white again. Where did you get that? I met him, my brother, your other son, the one you abandoned 30 years ago. That's not. I don't know what you're talking about. Stop lying. I know everything. He told me everything. About you and his mother. About how you left them. About how you pretended they never existed. And I need to know why. Why you would do that. Why you would abandon your own child. His father was quiet for a long time. Then he started crying. Actually crying. Tears running down his face. I was young. I was stupid. I was scared. His mother and I, we weren't right for each other. We fought constantly. And when she got pregnant, I panicked. I didn't know how to be a father. Didn't know how to handle the responsibility. So I ran. Came to America. Started over. Met your mother. Had you. Built a new life. And I convinced myself that the old life never happened. That Alexei never existed. That I could just forget about him and move on. But I couldn't forget. Not really. Every birthday, every holiday, every milestone in your life, I'd think about him, wonder what he was doing, wonder if he was okay, wonder if he hated me. And I knew he probably did, knew I deserved it, but I was too much of a coward to face it, to reach out, to try to make it right. You let him grow up thinking his father didn't want him, didn't love him, abandoned him without a second thought. I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. For him, for you, for your mother, for everyone I hurt with my cowardice. Sorry isn't enough, I know. But it's all I have. David looked at his father for a long moment. Then he said something that surprised me. Alexei wants to meet you. He wants to hear your side. To understand why you did what you did. To maybe, eventually, find some kind of peace with it. He wants to meet me? Yes, not to forgive you. Not to pretend everything is fine, but to close that chapter. To stop letting your choices define his entire life. His father nodded slowly. Okay, I'll meet him. I'll tell him everything. I'll answer any questions he has. And I'll apologize for all of it, for everything I should have done differently. That meeting happened 6 months later, in a neutral location, a cafe halfway between our house and where David's father lived. Alexei flew in from Prague. We all met there. Me, David, Alexei, and their father. The strangest family reunion in history. I won't lie and say it was easy. It wasn't. There was anger, pain, difficult questions, harsh truths. Their father cried multiple times. Alexei stayed mostly calm, but I could see the emotion beneath the surface. David sat between them, literally and figuratively, trying to bridge 30 years of distance and hurt. But by the end, something had shifted. Not forgiveness exactly, not reconciliation, but acknowledgement, understanding, the beginning of something that might one day become peace. Their father apologized. Really apologized. Not just "I'm sorry," but a detailed accounting of his choices, his regrets, his failures. He explained his reasoning not as an excuse, but as context. And he asked what he could do now to try to make it right, knowing that he could never fully make it right. Alexei listened, asked his questions, got his answers, and then he said something that I think surprised everyone, including himself. "I don't forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I don't want to spend the rest of my life hating you either. That's too exhausting, too consuming. So I'm choosing to let go of the anger. Not for you, for me. So I can move forward. So I can build a life that isn't defined by what you did or didn't do." Their father nodded. "That's more than I deserve. Thank you." They didn't hug. Didn't make plans to see each other regularly. Didn't pretend they were suddenly a happy family. But they shook hands, made eye contact, acknowledged each other's existence in a way that felt important. Now, 8 years after my ill-fated wedding night prank, our lives look very different. David and Alexei are genuinely close. They visit each other several times a year, video call weekly, have inside jokes and shared interests, and all the things brothers should have. Their relationship isn't perfect, but it's real. David's father is part of Alexei's life now, too. Not a close relationship, not father and son in the traditional sense, but they talk occasionally, have dinners when Alexei is in town, are working towards something that might one day resemble forgiveness. And me? I'm still married to David, still making terrible decisions about when and where to play pranks. Still, the person who accidentally uncovered a massive family secret by hiding under a bed in a negligee. We have 2 kids now, a daughter named Emma who's 5, a son named James who's 3. And they have an uncle they adore. Uncle Alexei, who sends them gifts from Prague and video calls to tell them stories and visits every Christmas to be part of their lives, in a way he never got to be part of David's father's life. We tell them the story sometimes, age-appropriate version, about how mommy tried to play a prank on daddy on their wedding night and accidentally discovered that daddy had a brother nobody knew about. They think it's hilarious, think it's the best story ever. Ask us to tell it over and over. One day we'll tell them the full version. About the bank robbery that almost happened. About the criminals in the hotel room. About the moment their mother crawled out from under a bed in her negligee and changed everyone's lives forever. But for now, they just know that mommy's prank brought their family together in an unexpected way. Last year, David's father passed away. Cancer. He'd been sick for 6 months. We all knew it was coming. In those final months, both David and Alexei visited him frequently. Sat by his bedside, talked to him, let him share his memories, his regrets, his wishes for both of them. On his deathbed, he called them both over, held their hands. I made a lot of mistakes in my life. But somehow, despite those mistakes, I ended up with 2 good sons, 2 men, who are better than I ever was. That's not because of me. That's despite me. But I'm grateful anyway. Grateful I got to know you both before the end. Grateful you both gave me more than I deserved. He looked at Alexei. I'm sorry I wasn't there. Sorry I let fear rule my life. Sorry I chose the easy path instead of the right path. You deserved better. You deserved a father who showed up. Then he looked at David. I'm sorry I lied to you. Sorry I kept this secret. Sorry, I put you in the position of having to discover your brother in the worst possible way. You deserved honesty. You deserved the truth. Both brothers cried. Told him they understood. Told him they appreciated the apology. Told him they'd take care of each other after he was gone. And they have. After the funeral, Alexei stayed with us for 2 weeks, helped sort through their father's things, found old photographs. Letters from Alexei's mother that their father had kept all these years. Evidence that he'd never really forgotten, even if he'd pretended to. They found something else too, a journal. Their father had been keeping it for 30 years, writing in it sporadically, documenting his thoughts about the son he'd left behind, his guilt, his regrets, his excuses, his rationalizations. Page after page of a man wrestling with the worst decision he'd ever made. The final entry was dated a week before he died. It said simply, "They gave me more than I deserved. They became brothers not because of me, but despite me. And somehow, that's enough. I can die knowing that my biggest mistake led to something beautiful, that my cowardice led to their courage, that my failure led to their success. Life is strange. Thank you, Sophie, for hiding under that bed, reading. That made me cry, made us all cry. Because he was right. My stupid prank, my ridiculous idea to scare David on our wedding night, that silly decision had set in motion a chain of events that brought a family together, that gave David a brother, that gave Alexei a family, that gave our children an uncle. That created something good from something that started out so wrong. Sometimes I think about that night, about how scared I was under that bed, about how close everything came to going terribly wrong, about how one different decision, one different moment, one different choice could have changed everything. If I hadn't hidden under the bed, Alexei would have used that room for his robbery. Might have gone through with it, might have gotten caught, might have ended up in prison. David would never have known he had a brother. Their father would have died with his secret intact. None of the good that came from that night would have happened, or maybe it all would have happened anyway. Maybe fate has a way of working things out. Maybe Alexei and David were always meant to find each other. Maybe my prank was just the universe's way of making it happen. I prefer to think it's the latter. That the universe has a sense of humor, that it saw two brothers who needed each other and decided the best way to bring them together was through a bride in a negligee hiding under a bed while criminals planned a heist. Because that's exactly the kind of ridiculous thing the universe would do. David and I still laugh about it. Especially on our anniversary. Every year on our wedding anniversary, I hide under the bed. Just for a moment, just as a joke. And David comes in and pretends to be surprised, pretends to look for me. And then I jump out and we laugh about how much better our second wedding night was than our first. Emma thinks this is the funniest tradition. She wants to do it at her wedding someday, wants to hide under the bed and surprise her future spouse. I tell her, absolutely not. Tell her that our story is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Tell her she should just have a normal wedding night, like normal people. But secretly, I hope she does. I hope she finds her own ridiculous moment, her own unexpected adventure, her own story that's so crazy nobody will believe it. Because those are the moments that make life interesting. The moments that seem terrible at the time but turn into something beautiful. Last month, Alexei called with news. He's getting married. To a woman named Elena he met in Prague. A teacher. Kind. Smart. Perfect for him. And he wants David to be his best man. Wants our whole family to come to the wedding in Prague. Of course we're going. All of us. Me, David, Emma, James. We'll watch Alexei get married. Watch him start his own family. Watch him build something new that has nothing to do with the past and everything to do with the future. And maybe, just maybe, I'll tell Elena the story about how I met her future brother-in-law, about the wedding night prank that went wrong, about how hiding under a bed in a negligee led to her meeting Alexei, about how the strangest moments sometimes lead to the best outcomes. David jokes that we should warn her. Tell her that marrying into this family means accepting that sometimes the most ridiculous things happen, that sometimes life is stranger than fiction, that sometimes the universe has a plan, and that plan involves brides hiding under beds and criminals, planning heists and brothers, meeting for the first time in the worst possible circumstances. But I don't think she needs warning. I think she already knows what she's getting into. Anyone who falls in love with Alexei, who knows his story, who understands where he came from and how he got here, already understands that this family doesn't do anything the normal way. We're the family brought together by a prank, by a secret, by a moment of fear that turned into a moment of connection. We're the family that shouldn't exist but does. The family that proves that sometimes the best things come from the worst circumstances, and I wouldn't change any of it. Not the fear, not the terror. Not the moment I thought those men might hurt us. Not the awkward years of David and Alexei learning to be brothers. Not the difficult confrontation with their father. None of it. Because all of it led to this. To Emma asking Uncle Alexei to teach her Russian over video call. To James getting excited when packages arrive from Prague. To David having a brother he can call when he needs advice or support or just someone to talk to. To Alexei having a family that chose him instead of abandoning him. That's what we are now. A chosen family. Not bound by obligation or tradition or expectation, but by choice, by love. By the decision to show up for each other, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. People ask me if I wish our wedding night had gone differently. If I wish I'd never done the prank. If I wish we'd had a normal, romantic first night as a married couple, instead of fleeing from criminals and discovering family secrets. And the answer is no. I don't wish it had gone differently. Because yes, it was terrifying. Yes, it was insane. Yes, it was the furthest thing from romantic you can possibly imagine, but it was also perfect in its own strange way. It was us. David and me facing something impossible together. Supporting each other, protecting each other, surviving together. That's what marriage is. Not the perfect moments, not the romantic gestures, not the fairy tale wedding nights, but the moments when everything goes wrong and you still have each other. When life throws something unexpected at you and you face it together. When you're scared and confused and in way over your head, and the only thing you're sure of is that you want the person next to you. That's what I learned that night, that David was my person. The one I wanted next to me when criminals took over our hotel room. The one who would protect me even when he was terrified. The one who would hold my hand and get us through it. The one who would laugh with me afterward about how insane it all was. And that's what Alexei learned too. Even though he didn't realize it at the time, that he didn't have to be alone. That family wasn't just about blood or obligation or the people who raised you. That he could build something new, choose people who chose him back, create connections that mattered. 8 years later, as I watch my children play with their uncle, as I see David and Alexei planning their next visit, as I think about the wedding we'll all attend in Prague next summer, I'm grateful. Grateful for the prank that went wrong. Grateful for the fear that led to courage. Grateful for the secret that became truth. Grateful for the stranger who became family. I hid under a bed on my wedding night to prank my husband. But the person who walked in was his half-brother planning a bank robbery. And, somehow, impossibly, that terrible moment became the beginning of something beautiful. That's my story. That's our story. The strangest, most ridiculous, most perfect love story of a family brought together by coincidence, fear, honesty, and the willingness to choose each other again and again. And every year, on our anniversary, when I hide under that bed and David pretends to be surprised, we remember. We remember how far we've come, how much we've grown, how much we've built from that one insane night. We remember that sometimes the worst pranks lead to the best outcomes, that sometimes fear leads to courage, that sometimes strangers become family, that sometimes the universe knows exactly what it's doing, even when we don't. And we remember that love isn't about perfect moments. It's about imperfect moments that become perfect because you're facing them with the right person. It's about hiding under beds and discovering secrets and protecting each other and laughing about it afterward. It's about building something strong enough to survive anything, even criminals, even family secrets, even wedding night pranks gone horribly wrong. That's what we have now. 8 years after the worst and best wedding night in history. A family that's stronger for having been tested. A love that's deeper for having survived something ridiculous. A story that's better for being absolutely true. And when Emma asks me, as she often does, if I'll teach her how to do the perfect prank, I tell her yes. But I also tell her to be prepared, to be ready for anything. Because sometimes pranks lead to unexpected places. Sometimes they uncover secrets you didn't know existed. Sometimes they change everything. But that's okay, because the unexpected places are often the best places. The secrets that get uncovered are often the ones that needed to be revealed. And the changes are often exactly what you needed, even if you didn't know it at the time. I hid under a bed on my wedding night, and I found a family I didn't know existed. I found strength I didn't know I had. I found proof that my husband was exactly who I thought he was. I found a story worth telling. I found purpose in the chaos. And most importantly, I found that sometimes, just sometimes, the universe has a sense of humor. And when it does, the best thing you can do is laugh along, hold on tight, and enjoy the ride. Because you never know where it might lead. You never know who you might meet. You never know what beautiful thing might come from the strangest, most terrifying, most ridiculous moment of your life. That's the lesson of my wedding night. That's the wisdom I'll pass down to my children. That's the truth I know in my bones. Life is unpredictable. Love is messy. Family is complicated. And sometimes, the best thing you can do is hide under a bed in a negligee and see what happens. Because you just never know. You just never know what might walk through that door, what secret might be revealed, what adventure might begin, what family might be found. For me, it was all of the above. And I wouldn't trade it for anything, not for a perfect wedding night, not for an uncomplicated family, not for a life free of fear and surprise and chaos. Because this life, this messy, complicated, beautiful life, is mine, ours, and it's perfect exactly as it is. Pranks, criminals, secrets, and all.